Hello and welcome to yet another transfer show here on Anfield Index. I'm Trev Downey, still in my field in beautiful rural Ireland, and I am, of course, joined by Mr. Dave Davis. Dave, I've just got one thing to say at the start of this. Before we get into any of the big stories, free Nat Phillips, Dave. Free Nat Phillips. Let's get the campaign going. Let's get this poor kid out of the club. I hate what's happened to him. I mean, I have a fondness for him from that time he had to step in. I thought he did perfectly fine, did well for us in a difficult time. And you just like to see the lad have a career. It's wild, really.
I mean, I can't even remember when we started doing these, but since we started doing these many years ago, we were talking about like Nat Phillips and the opportunities elsewhere and loans and when it will happen. And he's still officially a Liverpool player after all this time. It just seems absolutely insane. But fingers crossed for him. And again, this is famous last words because we've said this before. Yeah. This could be the year the release happens, baby.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel bad for the kid. Right, let's get cracking with the big story that everyone's going to want to hear about right from the start. And that is, of course, the state of play with the Florian Wirtz thing. We are doing this on Wednesday evening, Wednesday, the 11th of June. On Tuesday night, that's last night, the 10th, we all got a little bit giddy because we, despite our best impulses, decided to trust the Here We Go merchant who launched one of his patented tweets. Oh, I don't know when it was, but it was getting on a bit last night. The giddiness was quite palpable. And then we had another of those go-to fellas, Ornstein, who said, whoa, hold your horses. I don't think we're quite there yet. There are, however, interesting reports, one of which has been mentioned in the chat comments already, and I know you want to cite that. But where are we? Because, again, the UK reporters, as you mentioned here in your notes, the UK reporters, when it comes to the German league and stuff like that, they have not been to the fore.
Yeah, it's almost like good scientific bit here, like the Kubler-Ross change curve, wasn't it, almost? That we had that little dopamine hit, didn't we? There you go, at 9:38 last night when that tweet goes out saying, and it was a here we go, and everyone was like, brilliant, the celebration, the comps were being launched, and everyone's like, this is it, this is amazing, let's gear up for the excitement. We're not going to be able to sleep tonight. And then a few were rightly saying, like, come on, Ornstein, come on, Joyce, give me my next dopamine hit, give me the confirmation. And nothing was really coming. Then all of a sudden, a bit unusually for that time, David Ornstein was on the reporter show on Sky Sports. Everyone's like, it's a bit unusual. And funnily enough, he's talking about Florian Wirtz. And funnily enough, David Ornstein, as he phrased it, like fair play to anyone else, but according to the clubs, this is not done. And obviously there it hits last night, 11:22 for those that braved it and stayed up. David Ornstein tweeting, Liverpool by Leverkusen still in talks over Florian Wirtz at final stages. Clubs in daily contact to reach agreement. The only thing I like about that post or that tweet, Trev, he managed to avoid using the word close. So we've got to give him respect for that because everyone else has used that word 86,000 times. So I'll give him respect for that. But also mention a little bit around Nunes we'll get to. So today it's been, again, a case of like waiting. Is anything going to happen? Like, when's this going to break? And we had Lewis Steele on Media Matters earlier who was clearly saying like full expectation, the full briefing is that they've got another patch journos this week sometime. Like, so we're all kind of waiting with that bated breath still. Now, I'm not going to have a go at pronouncing this. Apologies. But Deutsche Cop out there says, let's call them said, are reporting there's a Wirtz medical tomorrow. And as you rightly put, they were the ones who broke the story about Florian Wirtz being in Liverpool, you know, that move. So we'll have to see if that bears out. Well, you know, it's very believable, isn't it? It would be nice if we got something more. But the week is ticking. The clock is ticking. So we are kind of expecting something on this. And maybe someone who knows we're expecting something, I kind of like Frimpong. I like his interview. I like his style. And maybe he's taking a leaf out of Kerkez's book. But just funny this, hasn't it? All of a sudden, young Jeremy tweets that or puts it on his Insta, doesn't he, with the Frimpong and Wirtz. He knows full well what he's doing there. So that's interesting. But we are waiting still, it seems. There is, people say, well, he got the here we go. But then Romano Walsh did a video where he says, final details still to be worked out, which felt like a little bit of a backtrack, doesn't it? But either way, I think Frimpong knows, we all knows. It's still, as all journalists are saying, when, not if. Let's see, and let's expect it, from what they're saying, to be this week.
I'm a tremendous fan of the social media activity of Wirtz Kerkez and Jeremy Frimpong, and they seem like they're very enthusiastic about joining the club. Both of them doing these overt hints all the time. That from Frimpong's very interesting. You know, he's going to be in close contact with his buddy, and he probably wouldn't chance that otherwise. I think where everyone's a little bit frustrated, Dave, is around the details of it, because it's very hard. You go from place to place, it's very hard to get it. Why, for example, what would have prompted Romano to launch his catchphrase? We have at least one theory there in the chat from James. Was it James? Yeah, James said something about an email. Like, again, I don't know any of these details. And again, I feel as well as if I'm being there's a bit of a spoofy thing going on when I'm reading the details. I'm reading about the numbers. And I think if people even had a certain amount of clarity about that, because I swear to God, I'm worried for some of the lads on my timeline. Genuinely worried for them. They are in all sorts of despair and gloom about typical Liverpool. Is, you know, they've gone full FSG out because it hasn't happened now. And do we have any genuine clarification around the numbers, around what it is that might be holding this up? Because I even lodged one little conspiracy theory at you. Is it something to do with, we were apparently reported to be in some sort of negotiations around Kwanzaa? Is that holding things up? What is the story? So where are we in terms of what we know about the outgoings in terms of money, or apparently the personal terms have been agreed long ago?
Yeah, the funny thing is, and even though there's different figures, there's agreement on both sides around this. And what I mean is, if you speak to the German journalist and the patch journos and others, there seems to be almost this weird agreement that the figure reported in Germany will be different to the figure reported in the UK. There's almost agreement that one of us is going to be lying, if you know what I mean. It's a bit weird almost, but it's the way Bayer Leverkusen and their board, the way they're going to put it out. And we know how Liverpool like to put out figures, if we want to phrase it that way, and control that narrative, shall we say. So there's going to be different figures reported. Journalists on both sides adamant about that. The interesting thing we've got today, and again, a little bit, everyone's trying to find out, it still comes down to little small points everyone's saying, like add-ons, are they achievable? But the latest we had today at Anfield Index from a number of sources, we managed to get this stood up, even little bits like, is it going to be paid in euros or pounds? What's going to be like the bank, you know, the banking instrument, the country it's through? It's little weird details that you just never think are going to really come up in a transfer. But that's the info that we're getting. And it was interesting because I almost thought of you and me when we do this, because as we always say, when people were telling me, I replied and went, oh, that's interesting. And actually I was thinking, I don't really give a fuck, to be honest. I just want this done. I don't care if we're playing in like Bahrainian dinar, do you know what I mean? Or whatever it is type of thing. Like, let's just get it done. But the full expectation is still, as everyone's briefing, so you could only go off that it's done this week and that Wirtz is a Liverpool player by the start of next week.
Yeah, I'm currently flirting with the concept of buying myself a car. I want a truck. I just want a truck. And I've been looking at cars in the north of Ireland. And of course, then the prices are quoted in British pounds as opposed to euro. And it seems like all across Twitter, lads are incapable of making the distinction between it. And they're going off on one. What do you mean 150? And then someone explains they mean euro. And it's just, it feels like fellas want to get wound up about this.
Yeah.
And again, no judgment here. We would all love it to be done, but everything about it seems to be pointing the right way. I will take this little social media thing as a win for today. And if you want to hear about how good Florian Wirtz will be for us, I just listened to young Hendricks' Daily Red, where he was waxing lyrical about him, and I'm genuinely excited to see him play for us, I have to say. And I'm going to make the assumption that he will at this point. Now, we have spoken ourselves privately on the show, in the WhatsApp, before and after the show. I did Daily Red yesterday talking about this topic, Saudi money, and what it might mean for us in terms of the business that we can do. The Darwin Núñez story seemed to be shot down, and once that initial window had come and gone, even more so seems to have gone away. However, not everyone believes that. Not everyone believes that Darwin's definitely not for Saudi. But the more recent reports were the ones, again, that were coming out just a day or two before this initial window closed about Luis Diaz and Al Nassr. And of course, Luis Diaz and Barca is still a thing. Where are we on that story about Diaz? Because the reported amount that we heard yesterday, was it, or the day before, was tremendous, let's be honest.
Yeah, on the Diaz situation, that figure's still doing the rounds, isn't it? And it's important to note the currency, 85 million euros, as keeps getting reported. That's what Al Nassr are prepared to bring to the table on various reports. Now, it's still the same story from our info, and just checking on it today again, that it's Liverpool, Barcelona, or Al Nassr for Luis Diaz. If you stay at Liverpool, you don't get the renewal. Now, Barcelona, I'm almost saying them loosely, because even today, just trying to get a bit on that, there's loads of briefings from the Spanish side that Luis Diaz is wanted. But just to give people an idea of where Barcelona are right now, Barcelona are looking like they're going to do a deal for Ivan Perisic. And this is not Football Manager 2017, by the way. I think he is 36, 37. He's about to be released on a free transfer by PSV, I think it is. I mean, Spurs released him, what was it, a couple of years ago? So the fact they're doing that probably shows you where they are in a financial sense with the other things they're going to do. So I don't see any world, unless something incredible happens, and it's still possible with Barcelona, that they all of a sudden find 85 million euros down the sofa. And Liverpool have put that story out publicly. That's just not going to happen, barring a miracle. Now, people will also be, and I know this will come up in the chat panel, someone's going to say, you can't sell Diaz. Did you see his goal last night for Colombia where he, beats half the Argentine? And I get all that. But there's no change in the info. It's quite clear that he's not going to get a renewal. It does feel like we're boiling down eventually to that. Do you want the Saudi money or not? Because if you don't, you're staying. Well, so we'll have to see what develops around that. Darwin, this was an interesting line, because I've highlighted it there. David Ornstein put it in his article last night about Al Hilal did inquire about Darwin Núñez and said they were made aware of the terms. And it's funny how he kind of ended that there, because you have a feeling it might have been Al Hilal saying, how much is Darwin Núñez? Well, at least 70 million. Hello? Hello? And Al Hilal probably hung up the phone type of job in that regard. Now, the people are suggesting that means they may come back, and that is absolutely possible. But I also have the feeling, as we mentioned the other transfer show, Al Hilal were wanting things for the Club World Cup, didn't they? That was a big thing for them, and that deadline has now passed. The other thing to mention, as a few are pointing out, in this article and other reports, that Darwin Núñez, and we said this, didn't we, the last transfer show, has a preference, and Lewis Steele even mentioned it again today on Media Matters, has a preference to stay in Europe, doesn't he? That's the big thing to remember. And Atletico Madrid get mentioned by many as well. That one keeps coming up. Napoli and the Saudis are keen. So it does look like there's still interest in Núñez, but a bit like Luis Diaz, maybe Núñez hasn't got an idea on where he wants to go or where he doesn't want to go. So that's important. And people are mentioning Darwin to Atletico, and that is a team that keeps coming up. And we're trying to manifest this, as you know badly, Trevor. I mean, Simeone's now mentioned him. And if you add Simeone to the president, this is 5 times they've mentioned now Julian Alvarez. For a player that's not for sale, this does just get mentioned time and time and time again. And even a couple of days ago, Diego Simeone going, it's logical. I can't imagine it any other way. Of course, every top club wants him. Barca, PSG, Arsenal, Liverpool, all of them. Again, it's highly unlikely you'd fancy. We can't say this is close. We can't say it's definite. We'd love this to be a swap, wouldn't we? That's what we'd want all summer. And even today, speaking of unlikely transfers, 3 different journalists have reaffirmed, Trev, that Alexander Isak is Liverpool's top target for the striking position. That's the news. But again, please, people, before you jump on this as a chat panel, as I'm saying, a highly unlikely transfer. But we're just telling you what we get, that Isak's being mentioned. Alvarez is being mentioned. It does seem that Darwin Núñez prefers to be in Europe next season. It seems pretty certain that he's not going to be at Liverpool next season as well. But yeah, the whole striker situation it's fascinating to me. It is the next position that's going to be a focus. And it's just important to reiterate something we've talked about for a number of weeks. They are looking at a number of contingencies. And we spoke about it like backup forwards or forwards that could play wide and in the middle. That's got mentioned again today. And even as Lewis Steele said, maybe possibly it's been discussed a stop-gap option potential as well, you know, if you can't get who you want this summer. So like we've said for umpteen weeks, long story short, rule nothing out with the forwards.
No, I mean, it's all on the table. The Jota situation is interesting as well. We spoke about Harvey Elliott, one of our attackers anomaly as well, recently on the last show. Can I say something for the record? Because as you were speaking there, I got not 1 but 2 reactions to the show going out live on Twitter from pals of mine on Twitter saying, oh, fair play, I don't know how you managed to do this when, there's literally nothing happening. And some other client in the chat there talking about like how much can you, wring out of mileage can you get out of one story. Here's the thing. We would rather not have any more mileage out of the Wirtz thing. It does not do us any good or edify us in any way, shape, or form to come on here and talk about how the fucking deal is not done. All I want to be telling you about is how Darwin Núñez has gone to Atletico for a ridiculously large amount of money that we never saw coming, or how Florian Wirtz is leaning against somewhere in a Liverpool shirt. But there are a lot of complications in this deal. We didn't even mention one of the theories an awful lot of people have been floating, which is the whole Adidas Nike nonsense that's going on in the background as well. We're just talking about the stories or the lack of stories or the movement or the developments as they progress. And it's vital. This is the most incredibly monumental transfer window that Liverpool have had in ages. We're looking at a team rebuild. We're looking at going into the next season as champions and being confident that we can do it again. I think, we got to talk about every single aspect of every single story as it comes. One of our super chats there, who would you guys prefer in terms of, you reckon strikers?
I think because it was about that time that we were talking, I think it's, if I'm right, there you go. Why do we exclude Isak or Alvarez? It's easy for me. It's Alvarez. The main reason being, you look at Isak's injury record is the big thing for me, and you could be paying top dollar for someone whose injury record isn't that different to Diogo Jota, in all honesty. Plus, I think that in terms of link, they are slightly different. Isak is just a pure out-and-out number 9, isn't he? Plays on the edge. That's his job. Alvarez can do that, but also, as we profiled him on various shows, can drop deep, can play a few positions and link better. And I'm not being funny. I've said it on a few pods. my absolute dream front line of Salah, Wirtz, and Alvarez. That's the Premier League done for next season.
Yeah, just pack it up, lads. We'll finish up early. Yeah, I'd be of the same opinion around Alvarez. It was that word that was used before by Arne in terms of facilitator, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's got to be something that we're thinking about, although certainly Wirtz would tick that box too. Our next area of intrigue is that apparently Nottingham Forest are interested in not one, not two, but three of our players. Where is this coming from? This completely got past me. I didn't see it at all. And now I'm starting to think, oh, who could be coming the other way that we could possibly make part of the deal? So what's this Forest angle?
Yeah, this is one that, you know, something comes to you at first and you're thinking it'll be nonsense, but you try and get it stood up, you look, and actually someone says, yeah, that bit, and you're like, Christ, there's something in this. Doesn't mean it's any done deals or anything imminent at all, but yeah, three players Nottingham Forest have made an inquiry over. One's on the screen, Jarell Quansah, Harvey Elliott, and Diogo Jota. Those are the three players we've got that Nottingham Forest have made an inquiry for. And I'll be honest, when we got this, there was a little bit of me thinking, well, hold on. Forest have got wingers. There's Morgan Gibbs-White there as well. So where would Harvey fit in? And also, you think about Forest for Quansah in terms of, well, they've got Murillo as the left-footed centre-back, and I can't remember. I think it's Milinkovic, if I'm right, is the name for the other centre-back. But, yeah, there you go. And, I mean, I kind of want to treat these players a little bit separate because Harvey, who we know has done that interview and clearly is looking at options, has inquiries galore, is the info we've got. Wolves have been in for him. Newcastle have asked about him, although it's important to say the info we've got. Newcastle, that was Paul Mitchell before he got ousted by Eddie Howe. And if you look at Newcastle, they've moved on to, it looks like Elanga. So I suspect that one's ruled out, but Brighton in the mix as well. So Harvey's got plenty of offers and he's done that interview, hasn't he, about, you know, I have to look at my options, I can't waste my career. I think we all know what's going to happen there. The important part to say with Harvey, though, is a bit like Quansah, he's at the Euro under-21 till the end of June, isn't it? So it feels like it'll all be building till then. Quansah, though, is a fascinating, and it's fascinating how stuff's come out today, literally in the last few hours, hasn't it, about Quansah. Quite a few reports on the German side saying, separate from Wirtz, but Bayer Leverkusen are properly looking at him as an option with Jonathan Tah departing. Now, doing a bit of digging on this, you've got, people will group them together, Trev, but it's important to separate Quansah and Elliott in terms of the way they are. Elliott is a massive Liverpool fan, is he? You can tell in his interviews he's desperate to stay. He wants it to work. He's just almost, it's like he's accepted finally, isn't it? It's not going to happen basically at Anfield. It's just the way it is. Quansah, for all info, wants to play football. Isn't a die-hard Liverpool fan, wants to play football. And the big thing about Quansah as well that we got as well over the last sort of 24 hours, sees himself as having a real shot at Thomas Tuchel's World Cup squad, you know, for not this summer, but the next summer, and knows full well if the situation stays as it is right now, not a chance in hell. Jarell Quansah knows he needs to play football. And essentially, barring a miracle, and you never know what can happen in football, but it's nearly impossible to see him getting those minutes at Liverpool, isn't it? And working his way into that World Cup squad. So that is the big driver for Jarell Quansah. It's just funny, isn't it, tonight that Romano, Plettenberg and a few others are just starting to report that he is on Leverkusen's shortlist. And it was funny how back at the time it was mentioned there was a few options, weren't there, linked in part exchange, and this seems to be coming back round again. But yeah, that was the big update that we got for today. And right now, I would not put a single penny on Harvey Elliott or Jarell Quansah being at Anfield next season.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting call for Jarell if the Bayer Leverkusen interest is real, because obviously that's a good high-profile club in a solid league for him to go to. and he would be optimistic he would play, I assume, if they're going to sign him for biggish money. But you would, I don't know if it's quite the same as it used to be, but there's that sort of, there used to be that fear that if you were kind of out of sight and out of mind, if that England thing was really a driver for him. Why anyone wants to spend time in close approximation with Thomas Tuchel, I do not know, but fair play if that's your goal. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to watch, and I think Harvey's obviously on his way out the door. Can we just actually pause it there one sec? Because did you see, again, it was one of those things where I think somebody said it and everybody ran with it. Did you see this? Well, it wouldn't be that bad if we hung on to Darwin now that we've got Florian Wirtz stuff coming up. I mean, I'm sorry, but that is actually mental. Like, we have loved the kid as much as anybody, probably more. A lot of us here at this particular channel, and wanted and willed it and sort of said, make him be good now, and it just hasn't happened. We have to admit that that has been just a misadventure for all concerned. And the kid himself will be thinking, hang on, I was on track to be one of the top European talents. I need to get back to that. Yeah. So I don't see any way in which he is not an absolute certainty to move, but I just wanted to get your take on that.
I absolutely think it's bobbins anyone who thinks that, just in terms of, and I know we could all have our blind spots or players that we love and personalities. I get all that. But you've got 3 solid years of evidence that Darwin Núñez isn't good enough. You've had 2 elite coaches have a go with him and basically give up a little bit on him. I think that's quite clear now as well, looking to move him on. And add that with, we know what they were trying to do in January before, obviously, other moves didn't work out. And I saw that as well, like you said. And my honest thought of it is this in simple numbers. Okay, let's bring Florian Wirtz in and keep Darwin Núñez. Now, instead of missing 40 chances a season, Darwin can miss 60 chances a season. Let's watch that fold out, shall we, and see if we're all happy at the end of it.
That's pretty much where my mind went as well. The big disappointment, I think, of yesterday evening was that we didn't get the Kerkez announcement. I think everyone would have been quietly delighted with Frimpong and Kerkez in with Wirtz in the situation it appears to be in. Everyone would have been quite giddy with that, actually, and it would have made the whole Wirtz thing seem even more inevitable because look what we've done. But the fact we're still waiting on the Kerkez news is frustrating for people. We had the knowledge that there was a complication because Bournemouth wanted to get their replacement in situ. Apparently, all the things were in place, I's dotted and T's crossed, in time for the deadline last night. At least that's what I was led to believe. And yet no announcement came. Do we know why that was?
Yeah, so I suppose it comes back a little bit to what you want to believe. I mean, Sky had out yesterday afternoon, like, Liverpool have finally made contact with Bournemouth. Like, come on, guys, where have you been? Do you know, like, what are you trying to sell here type of thing? But, I mean, the simple fact is he didn't play a single minute of the internationals. He's released from the camp for, what was it, quote unquote, private reasons. You know, we know what's happened. And if there's nothing in it, why do we also get the reports? And I'm probably butchering his name here, but Bournemouth have agreed a deal for Rennes left back, Trufferet, I think it's pronounced. So why would they be signing a left back when they've already got 2? If this is, you know, we all know what's going on realistically. It just feels like almost Wirtz will be the cake and Kerkez will be the frosting a little bit more than anything. They're just waiting. But everyone that we speak to still says, like, yeah, absolutely, it's done. And funnily enough, Bournemouth players are saying the same now as well, because Justin Kluivert in the Dutch camp, when he's interviewed by Dutch TV, as he's on the screen there, said, yeah, he'll probably go there, as into Liverpool. I hope so for him. He hasn't really said goodbye yet, but I hope he'll make it happen there. I mean, for God's sake, players in his current team are talking. We all know, again, what's happening. It's just the old when, not if.
Yeah, and look, I do get that nobody wants to count their chickens, and I kind of spent an awful lot of my life not wanting to be optimistic, because pessimism is a lovely little blanket you can wrap around you, and you tell yourself you can never be disappointed. But you get a bit older and you realize, well, you might as well have the crack when you can and be hopeful when you can, because if you get a kick in the balls, it's the same kick in the balls, right? So that's where I am with this. And I'm finding myself, even just after talking about these stories, very, very giddy about the potential for next season, what this team looks like. I mean, it could be a little bit of a train wreck as they get to know each other, but my God, the excitement levels will be through the roof. And just to finish with Liverpool then, a little bit of bad news, and we touched on it the last day. Oh, sorry, we didn't. I touched on it on Daily Red yesterday, was the news about the Stefan Bajcetic injury. And, you know, this... I don't have to say this without sounding like, you know, you're talking about players as commodities, but it will be a complication because of the fact that Bajcetic might well have been one of those that might have been moved along. We're not sure what his status is within the club and within the opinions of the people who matter there.
Yeah, it's a tough one, because people will say definitely this, definitely that. In simple terms, we'll never fully know, because he was going to come back for pre-season. He was going to be assessed. A lot of suggestion was that there wasn't much hope for him realistically, as in he needed to play football. So if it wasn't a move, a permanent one, it was going to be a loan. And I think people kind of just almost said it a little bit like, no, he'll be the Endo replacement. On what basis? It was just a feeling and a vibe, wasn't it? I think people were working on. But doing a bit of digging on this, that there wasn't sort of much expectation that he was going to trouble the starters. And if you think, this is also important to remember, Liverpool are briefing all the patch journos, as we've said, across the board, that Wirtz is going to come in as a 10, which means that Wirtz is going to be the starting 10. We know about Szoboszlai probably reverting to the 8. So the midfield options get more and more congested there, don't they? Where's Bajcetic going to fit in that? And now, unfortunately, even if you are a big Badge fan and you believe that, this one, I mean, hamstring surgery, because a complication that came up at Las Palmas, didn't he? And you feel for the kid. Again, something that doesn't help him, Trev. A lot of injuries in a short career, hasn't he? He spent more time out injured than on the pitch, unfortunately. The kid just needs to play football. And now he's had hamstring surgery. Sounds horrible, but as people are suggesting, he's going to struggle to be back for pre-season. I just don't know where Badge goes at Liverpool from here.
Yeah, I think he goes on loan yet again. I think that's the obvious sort of thing for the lad whenever he recovers. That's pretty much that, I think, in terms of Liverpool. Is there anything else at all that's hanging around you want to throw in right at the end, or are we pretty much good to go into the Premier League?
No, I think it is important to reiterate what you said, because there is a mix. And you're right, you talk about mates. I have a guy that I say speak to or message me regularly on Twitter, and I saw his account today. And at one point last night, it was like, this is brilliant. We're going to conquer all of Europe with Wirtz and all this. And then he kind of fell through. And I even saw it this morning. He was like, we've been hoodwinked by FSG. It's another... Honestly, I think he was one step away from tweeting like, where's the Caicedo money, John? Type of thing. And just like, it really does seem to be a flicker from end to end. Like you, we can only base off what we're hearing. When, not if. But in the near future, before that 1st of July, before everyone's back, if Liverpool have got Kerkez, Frimpong, Wirtz, are we not buzzing people? Is that not like big signings, things that move the needle as we talk about specifically? Is that not quote unquote big club behaviour? And I know someone will jump on this and say, oh, they're not leaning yet, it's not done. But we're on the 11th of June right now. I'm excited for it. People can pick what they want to be.
Yeah, those three plus some sort of reliable goal scorer, even just that much, it's paradigm shifting for the team, because it means more goals from the center of attack, more creativity via Wirtz, more creativity via the fullbacks. Yes, we lose Trent, but Robbo taking a step back. So it's going to be incredibly, incredibly exciting if and when these things happen.